The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That is an amazing title, at least for Zelda. It's certainly a lot better than The Legend of Zelda, The Object of Importance. So, I definitely have a lot to say about this game, but it's kind of like a bunch of scattered thoughts. So I'm not going to create a big old article for it like I did with Paper Mario. So, starting off, the world exploration kind of reminds me in a way of A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. I know Nintendo themselves compare it with the first Zelda game, but Link to the Past is what I get more of an impression of as you explore this overworld and you have these little dungeons you can go to collect new items. So let's see here, there's the equipment. I like that there's equipment. Different outfits and stuff, different items, lots of different items in fact. Also different weapons, that's pretty cool. The one thing that I don't like about the weapons is your inventory for weapons is really small. Like while they were demonstrating it at E3, they had to toss away weapons a lot because they kept finding new weapons. Having to toss away items is one of the most annoying things about limited inventory space in an RPG. So it would be nice if you could hold more weapons. That said, the weapons were definitely interesting. Sticks, clubs, swords, skeleton arms that are still moving. That was cool. Another thing that comes to mind is apparently you can use your shield to snowboard. It's not the first time Link's gone snowboarding. I recall there being a little bit of snowboarding in Twilight Princess, but that's still pretty cool. Speaking of cool though, the coolest thing that I saw from this demo is that Link is a rock climber. Like, literally, you can climb just about any wall, any cliff. You don't have to, like, find your way around. This big old cliff is not a boundary. If you want to find out what's on top of it, just climb right on up. You have to make sure you have enough stamina for it, but that's no big deal. There has to be some sort of limitation in place. But it's still really cool that you can just climb everywhere. That said, the open worldness, I am a little bit worried. They focused more on exploration during the E3 presentation. They didn't touch a whole lot on plot. I said a few minutes ago that the game kind of reminded me of A Link to the Past. Link to the Past did exploration really well, and it looks like so far, Breath of the Wild is also going to do the same thing. The thing of it is, I kinda got bored in Link to the Past because aside from exploration, there wasn't a whole lot going on. There was like no plot to motivate me to keep going. I mean, like the game opened up with a big opening, it's like, okay, this is really cool, I want to play the game, and then nothing happens for the next 3 dungeons, but suddenly plot comes back and you're defeating Aghanim, yay! Exciting! But then the plot goes away until you get through, I don't know, 6 or 8 more dungeons, and then the plot comes back for the finale. Problem is, I lose interest before that finale because all I'm doing is aimlessly wandering. So hopefully there's definitely going to be enough story in this. They avoided the story in the presentation, and it seemed like there was a point where I assume that's Zelda calling, is telling the player to get to this next point so we can advance the plot. They didn't really do that though, so maybe there'll be a bunch of plot to connect the areas, or maybe mostly it'll just be exploration with the occasional sprinkling of plot. Personally, I'm hoping for a bunch of plot. My first Zelda game was Ocarina of Time, and there was a lot going on in that game. Another thing that I want to bring up, though, is the mini-dungeons. Apparently, this game has like over 100 mini-dungeons. This is in addition to, I think they say, 4 main dungeons. 4 regular dungeons. The mini dungeons are in fact mini. You can easily defeat them within a half-hour time, maybe even 15 minutes time. And you know what? I like that. I like that these little dungeons are small, because it means that if I ever want to play whatever this game is called, Breath of the Wild, if I ever want to play it but I don't have much time, I can just pick it up, go into a mini dungeon, and be out of there in less than a half hour. Meanwhile, with these other 3D Zelda games, the dungeons tend to take like upwards of an hour to get through, and I just don't really have that time, so I'm definitely liking the mini dungeons. And I'm also liking that they give you interesting rewards, like they showed you one mini dungeon that you got this magnet power where you can levitate anything metal, which was really cool. And my personal favorite, another of the mini dungeons, gave you remote bombs. Not just regular bombs, remote bombs. I am okay with that. Now, I can't imagine that all 100 some odd mini dungeons will give you a new Zelda item. Maybe some of them will just give you new clothes. Now, those times it won't be so interesting, but if most of the dungeons can give you something new to toy around with, I can potentially see this game keeping my interest. I mean, the biggest thing with Zelda is all the toys you get. And if they keep giving me new toys, they'll keep my interest. Will I actually get this game? Probably. I mean, I went into this E3 thinking, I'm not even going to watch this Zelda presentation. I'm probably going to get it anyway. But I watched it anyway, and I definitely liked what I see. Now I'm just curious what the plot's going to be like. And also, why Link awoke in that Shrine of Resurrection. Are they still doing that whole, split timeline thing? Is this game going to confirm the whole situation where the timeline split in Ocarina of Time because you died at one point? And that is dumb. I don't like the timeline theory. I just like some games being related to each other. Having split timelines just complicates things. It makes my head hurt, so I'm ignoring it. Except when it's official. The Zelda book, whatever it is, does not count. As far as I'm concerned, Nintendo just put a time limit in that, or timeline in that, to appeal to the fans. But otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, the only games that are really related to each other are Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Wind Waker references Ocarina of Time. Supposedly that Ghost Knight and Twilight Princess is you from Ocarina of Time. But that's about it. The rest of the games, not terribly related. And I'm fine with that. The last thing I have to say about Breath of the Wild is, as open as it is, I hope I don't get bored exploring. Because when I spend too much time running around doing optional stuff, it gets to the point where I no longer feel like I'm making progress, and I decide to play a game that I would be making progress. It's one of the reasons why I get really bored with the Elder Scrolls games. In the end, I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic about this game. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for it. Hopefully Nintendo, when this game comes out, they'll release a demo for it, and then I can get first-hand experience with it, and then I'll decide whether I want it or not. If there is no demo, I might still get it, but it's not as likely. We'll see. Oh wait, I thought of one more thing. The amiibo functionality. It's interesting that you can bring Wolf Link into this game, but is there any story attached to it? I mean, the thing about Twilight Princess is Link gets turned into a wolf, and there was a big story about that. So now Link's been transported into another time and place in which he's teamed up with Himself? Are they not going to explain that? Is Wolflink just going to accept it? I've already been turned into a wolf, whatever. With that said, now I am done.